Hello, welcome back to Tiny Artist TV. So in the last video I had mentioned that I wanted to start doing groupings of characters, and so I had started with number 11 being the Strawberry Ice Cream Magical Girl, and I have it marked here in a different color to kind of indicate which ones are going to be going together. So the ones in green were the first 10, they were just kind of one-off characters. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go ahead and roll this entire group so that I can make a more cohesive plan for how I want them to look, and then I actually want to put them all together in one big illustration and kind of reveal them one by one. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and roll numbers 12 through 20, and as the videos get uploaded you'll see what the characters end up looking like, and then the big group reveal at the end. So yeah, just picking numbers, writing them down for future reference, and then labeling them with which ones are going to be, whether they're 11, 12, etc., etc. And now we are getting into the drawing proper. Interestingly enough, the way this ended up working out, I have about 5 pastel color palettes and about 5, I guess you would call them dark color palettes. So maybe instead of just doing Mahou Shoujo, I'm going to end up doing a heroes and villains type character group. This one ended up being another pastel, so this is going to be the second magical girl in our heroes and villains group. And I have decided the way I want to style these, it's going to be based off of different types of fashion. No particular reason other than I thought that the color palettes that I ended up with kind of leaned into, it just made sense, and as the collection goes on I hope you'll kind of see what I mean by like it just makes sense to do that. So the heroes are more alternative fashion and the villains are more, and not to say that this particular style of fashion is bad or whatever, but the villains are more mainstream or more quote-unquote normal, like daywear style fashion, with the exception of one of them, which is avant-garde. But even avant-garde, I would say, is more mainstream. It's more high fashion. It's like Paris Fashion Week style. Like, you may not see someone wearing it like out in day-to-day life, but it's something that's accepted as more, I don't know, artsy, more mature style of fashion, whereas the heroes are going to be wearing more so like things that I would personally love to wear if I had the budget to wear them, i.e. deco fashion. I kind of dip my toe into that. I have a few pieces in my closet. This particular piece is inspired by vaporwave aesthetic, vaporwave fashion. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, I had to look it up too. Vaporwave fashion, as far as the aesthetic, can basically be boiled down to, it's like 80s and 90s nostalgia with a pastel lens, a little bit of neon thrown in, and it's like ironic art. It's classical meets digital thrown into a blender with the 80s and 90s aesthetic, and you put purple and pink gradients all over it. That's the best way I can describe it. So this character is inspired by vaporwave fashion, and I hope I'm doing it justice because I love the way vaporwave stuff looks. It's just so hard to like, you know it when you see it. So I hope when you see this, you think that. I did have a little bit of trouble trying to decide what elements to add to specifically make this a magical girl and not just the vaporwave techno pop kind of style. You can kind of see in the sketch where I have like some swoosh lines coming off of her knives. Eventually those turn into kind of like digital ribbons. But then also in the character creation process, I remember that Tecna exists, and she is, I would say, the most different in her particular grouping. So Tekna is from Winx Club, and all of the other girls, at least in the first couple of seasons, look like your stereotypical magical fairy girl, whereas Tekna, because she's like a technology-based magical girl, is very like futuristic. Her wings are kind of like digital dragon wing styling, and so that gave me a little bit of comfort with like not having to try to force this particular fashion style to look more quirky and cutesy than it needed to, because usually when you think of magical girls, you think of like with my last character, the big poofy skirt, like the ponytails or long hair, and just like lots of like big bright decorations, bright colors. Well, first off, this is a pastel color palette, so not a lot of bright to work with. I do cheat just a little bit and use some neon because, like, even though when I was looking at references for Vaporwave aesthetic and Vaporwave fashion, there were some, actually there was an image specifically that I was referencing that has the color palette that I'm working with, but I wanted to really push that, and instead of it just being kind of like pastel core, added the neon in there to really push that this is supposed to be Vaporwave styling. So I do give her some cute elements with the earrings and the bunny ears, which are a headband, and then the visor, which I guess the visor is attached to the bunny ears. I haven't really quite figured out the logistics of that, but it's all there just to add, again, some more cute elements and try to push her being a magical girl versus just like a digital girl. And then I play around with some designs on the tights, and I end up with this digital pixel gradient, which I absolutely love. I think it's super cute, and if I ever find these tights, I will very quickly be adding them to my personal collection. Other additional things that I try to add in, I don't leave this in the video, but I try to give her like some long, not quite ponytails, what would you call them? Like just long double rat tails that have these like heart loops on the end of them, and then I decided that looks kind of ridiculous. Even though it does make her look a little more magical girl, I didn't feel like it was authentic to the look that I was really going for with this character, so I cut it out. You don't actually ever get to see it, but that's part of the process. Is there are some things that happen behind the scenes, but pretty much everything that you see here ends up being in the final character. And so I didn't feel like it needed to be included because it's, you know, ultimately not on here, and I didn't think it added anything to the character overall. And mainly this was just me kind of pulling all of those, again, 80s and 90s sort of techno elements into the character and trying to push it in a sort of more fun and magical direction. And the other thing I forgot to mention, which I probably should have talked about when this was still actively happening on the video, was the blue skin. So my thinking was that because a lot of these characters are humanoid, I thought it would be kind of fun to make her an alien who's obsessed with like this ancient technology, that fusion of classical and like 90s technology, and that she may not necessarily be a human, so I gave her the blue skin from the color palette. But then the way everything was looking, it was all too much of one tone, so I just give her a sort of off pink skin tone. And this is number 12. It's Pastel Dreams, my Vaporwave magical girl. And that's all I have for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a weird day.